The Athene Real Talk Podcast explores controversial ideas to stimulate debate and active thinking. These ideas do not always reflect Athene's personal views. Welcome to the Athene Real Talk Podcast.
He has been called the best gamer in the world, hands down.
World-famous gamer and philanthropist Athene.
Gaming for Good, it's called, has raised more than $20 million.
Using his notoriety to raise money for charity.
On activism, science, culture, and self-development.
Proud to have him in the studio today. I would not want to take you on in a video game.
When selfless awareness more clicked with Nolan was when he fully understood nothing is external. And I thought, you know what? I'm going to talk about nothing is external because there's a lot of things that I repeat a lot in the stream. And people just get desensitized to the idea because I repeat it so much. It's like making sense. When you say making sense, probably most of you guys, you don't even absorb it. It's just like, okay, making sense. Like it's almost like you get desensitized to the concept. Same with nothing is external. I say several times nothing is external. And that's also something to be very aware of. You get desensitized. It's like when you have a certain term and you see it a lot and you hear it a lot, you just go like, yeah, there is no strong emotion to it connected anymore. It's just like, okay, it's very neutral. You don't even absorb it. It almost goes through you. It doesn't get absorbed. And that's why I thought like, you know what? I'm going to talk about nothing is external and really give many examples to really make you understand how crazy it is. Because when you think about nothing is external, it's like the way you go about it is like, okay, nothing is external. I understand a little bit, okay, consciousness, everything takes place in consciousness. But no, you really have to think about it. When you think about yourself, and the best way of doing that is just look at 4 people. Let's say you look out and you see a guy talking to many people, right? That guy, because it's very easy, it's harder to see it through your own perspective. Try to just imagine, project yourself in someone else. It's going to help you easier to understand nothing external. If you see a guy talk to 4 other guys, right? Then basically you say like, okay, this guy is John or whatever, and then all the other people are around him. So like basically, you know, you have this guy, identity, and then you have everything else, right? So you can really like project yourself saying like, okay, for this guy, this is who he is and everything else is external. For this guy, it's the other way. For me, it's me. I'm here and everything else is external. And when I say like nothing is external, it's because when you make a distinction between yourself and your environment and you label yourself as this is who you are and the outside as what is external, the problem is by labeling it that way on an emotional level, that you're basically going against what you are. You might say like, what do you mean with that? I don't fully understand. Of course, for practical reasons, what you do is you label yourself as who you are and the outside world as external because it allows you to survive and allows you to walk around. But the problem is if you emotionally identify and attach to this idea of this is me and this is the outside world, that's where the disconnect happens. Because the outside world, whatever you see, is part of who you are. It's part of your expression. And you might go and wonder like, but how does that work? I don't really fully wrap my head around. The thing is, if you look at your brain and you look at all the neural activity, your environment is basically taking place within your consciousness. Everything you see is as much part of you than your idea of the self. And you might say like, but that doesn't make sense because the outside world is outside and me is me. But the thing is like, these are just practical distinctions you make because it allows you to survive. But like, let's say, for example, you would experience your hand as an intruder. You're really convinced that a parasite took over your hand, right? And then you'd experience your hand. You go like, oh, my hand, this hand is external now. And all the rest of my body is mine, right? But the thing is like, as much as the distinction between your hand being, you know, external and the rest of the environment is external, as much as that is crazy to wrap your head around, as much it is crazy to label the external as external. So basically, when I grab this cell phone, the hand and the cell phone are equally part of what I am. And you might wonder, like, but if you drop the cell phone here and you go outside, then the cell phone is not with me, but your hand still is. Yeah, but you could still, you know, the reason why you make a distinction between your hand and the cell phone is because you just assume that the hand is part of who you are. Like, let's say now, instead of the cell phone, you have like, how do you say it? What other metaphor can I use that is more easily to connect with? Because the thing is, the problem is that when you see your cell phone and you say like, this is outside because I walk outside, and then it's not there anymore and therefore it's not mine. It's not part of my reality. You could say basically the same for example, your nails that grow. Like, are the nails right now yours? Because in a few days you might cut them off and they won't be there anymore. So like, to which extent is what is part of you defined by it not being part of you next day or in the future? Because then you can make the same argumentation with all the cells in your body that die out. And that's the thing. When you start identifying on an emotional level with who you are, there's a lot of flaws. And that's why I really love to talk about the clone example. The clone example is very powerful because it shakes up your sense of emotional identity, the emotional attachment to your identity. And if you can fully overcome that, that's when you actually start identifying with, well, not even identifying is not the wrong word, but your awareness starts elevating itself and you start experiencing yourself much more for what you are, and you see the environment as part of you. The problem is that we grow up with the sense of identity. The problem is we grow up and we get taught of thinking like that, and we are being basically wiring ourselves to believe that we're Superman. I already talked about it a lot, but it always comes down to like basically the idea of there is things that are external from you. But if you fully understand that everything actually takes place within your consciousness, everything, even your thought, like, yeah, but what is happening outside? Even the thought about what is happening outside is taking place within your consciousness. And this is not some kind of spiritual mumbo jumbo. It's just how the brain works. So the moment you realize that, and you realize that you're completely interconnected and that there is literally nothing external, the wall, the screen, me right now talking to you, you could almost say that me talking to you is as if you were dreaming and I'm talking to you. Like, the only difference is that when you're awake, that you make a more clear distinction. But when you're dreaming, I can't tell you because I've been doing lucid dreaming myself. When you talk to another person in your dream, it experiences the exact same way as you talking to another person while you're awake. I did the test, by the way. When I was dreaming, and I'm lucid dreaming, I can do tests. I also did calculations and stuff and wrote things down. Basically, I talked to other people and I was just looking like, okay, can I be this person? Is this person me? No. You just literally identify this person as someone else, even in your dream. And I'm not saying everything is taking place in a dream-like world and you have control like in your dream or whatever. I'm just explaining that everything takes place in your consciousness. If for any reason, when you're talking to a person, that person suddenly turns into a demon because certain neurons are firing, that's what you will experience. If you're talking to someone and suddenly like you are unable to completely, process information, might disappear. At the same time, maybe there is right now existential aliens standing next to me, but because I don't interact with them, they don't exist for me. And the moment I start seeing them or become aware of them, they suddenly come to existence. But before they didn't exist, and now they exist, not because before they didn't exist, but because now they're part of what you are. And that's what I mean with nothing is external. Nothing external goes really deep because it basically means that everything you experience takes place within your consciousness. For you. Everything. Your concepts, your ideas, everything. And the thing is, like, it's harder to wrap your head around and really identify with it. Well, identify is the wrong word, but like to really project in it because of identity. And that's why I think the clone example can be so helpful, because it scatters your sense of identity. Like, let's say you're cloned, right? And now I tell you, okay, you're the clone. You're not the original. So imagine you're the clone. You can imagine that. Like, people that are quite scientific, you can imagine that you're cloned. So who are you? There's a lot of people that would say, like, if I'm the clone, I would fall into identity crisis. I would not know who I am. I wouldn't want to live or whatever. But the thing is, you could see yourself as every single moment a different clone, if you think about it. Every single moment you are a different entity. And the thing is, like, it becomes very interesting when you start playing around with it. Let's say you want to commit murder, right? And then you have a clone. Like, let's say you killed someone and you make a clone of yourself. Did the clone kill that person? You might say, like, yes, he did, because, well, did he? Did he kill the person? What if you take away the memories that he killed that person? Did he then kill it then? When you start looking at that way of like yourself as a clone at any given moment, you start detaching yourself from this story, this narrative. Does that mean you can just go around killing everything and going like, oh, I'm a new person? Of course not, because it becomes part of what you are and it shapes the way you look at things. But at the same time, if you're able to take distance and not be emotionally attached, because that's what it is, you would just more easily look at your past and your memories as information rather than being emotionally attached to it. That's why I love the clone example. Everybody that has issues identifying with the clone has things to work on, has things to overcome. Because at the end of the day, you are ever changing. That's what you are. Every single moment, you're a new entity, you're a new expression. And being in the now, being in the present really allows you to grow beyond that, to really experience yourself for what you are. Same with being, selfless. All these things are connected. The awareness of, everything being part of what you are, being in the present, choiceless awareness, selfless awareness, making sense. All these things are very much connected. And the problem is that people are very stuck in their own worldview and the way they look at things, and being able to detach yourself and look at it from an outsider can really help you grow so much more. But what I've come to realize, and what helps a lot, I feel, is just explaining more about myself. And if people have the ability to just, let everything go. Imagine you just listen, I'm just explaining some about myself. Let's say this is a session, you are there, you're my psychiatrist, and I'm going to explain about my life, about how I go about my day, and you really try to understand. And what is very important is when you try to understand that it's not about you. It's not about you at all. It's about understanding me. So whenever you relate it back to you and experience dissonance, you relate it to you, you're doing it wrong. Just let everything go and just try to truly listen to what I have to say. And try to project with all your capacities, try to project. And the moment you make it about you and go but, no, then you're making about you and not truly listening. Truly listening is not about you. So let's say the next 10 minutes, it's about me. It's not about you. It's about me. So I'm just going to explain you guys so you guys get some more insight in how I go about life. When I wake up, I don't experience myself, a you that exists. I don't experience a me that exists. The me doesn't exist to me. I wake up and what I feel like doing is, immediately I think how do I contribute? I don't have thoughts in my head that goes this or that. I don't think how do I impress this person? What does this person think? No. I'm literally in the moment, in the present. I wake up and I don't think I got to do this, I got to do that. No. I just go what is the best thing? What has to be done? And what has to be done for me is very much related to what's required in the environment. For myself, if I have to take a piss, I go take a piss. It's very basic. But I don't have thoughts of, I want to achieve this, I want to do that, I would love to do that, I don't have any of that. I just wake up and I go the group has to grow, do I need to talk to Tanya? But when I say do I need, the I in do I need to talk to Tanya is not an identity thing. It's not I identify with this I, it's just the limitation of language. So basically it's very different. When I use I and when I use Athene, I don't connect it to a story, I just talk about it. Yeah, so basically I just go about my day what can I do? And I am not part of the equation whatsoever. When I wake up and I just think about what can I do, I'm not part of the equation. I just think this has to be done, this has to be done, and I just do it. That's it. I don't experience dissonance or thought. I just do what I have to do and that's it. And it's quite linear because when I go about talking to people or when I go about seeing if we have to do a sellout stream or trying to, manage the girls or seeing I have a meeting or this and that, everything just happens organically. I have very little structure in terms of this is all planned. Of course, since I'm in the situation that I am, things happen just automatically. I understand that if you do a 9-to-5 job and such, things might be a bit different, but even then, when you are in your situation, being able to go about life in the present mode where you really experience very little selfishness, then you don't really go around I would like to do this, I would like to do that, I would like to enrich myself like this, you don't have these desires. They just don't exist. You literally wake up free. What I mean with free is free from all these things that distract you, and that, at least that's the case for me. When I wake up free. I don't feel needs, I need to do this, I want this, I want that. I don't think in wants. I just think, how can I contribute? How can I give? And because I realize that people around me are part of what I am. Their growth brings about my growth. And what has helped a lot, some people here is I don't know how many people understand Final Fantasy, but when you play Final Fantasy, it's very similar as life. When you level up your character, you have all these different characters you play, they all level up together, and it's very similar in life. When you are growing, your other people are also growing with you. There is a synergy, and if other people grow, you grow as well. Life is more like Final Fantasy, where, you're not one character, you're just multiple characters, everybody around you. I would go even further, saying multiple characters, you just, everything around you is part of who you are. So yeah, basically, that is how I go through life. I really wake up, I really think, how can I contribute? And basically, you could almost see it as a real-time strategy. I'm playing The Sims, right? And my experience is The Sims, it's the game. And everything I do affects the game. And life, your experience is not this person in the game, it's everything. It's everything around you. People have played The Sims, right? Everything around you is part of the game. And the game is your consciousness. The character in the game is not your consciousness. The game is the consciousness. It's like a movie. When you watch a movie like The Matrix, you can see the Neo in the movie. But the movie is everything. It's not just Neo. When you want to understand even a story and you watch a movie, you do it by seeing the entire context, the entire movie, all the pixels on the screen, not just Neo. You see everything around it. Like it has more depth. If you would just see the character itself, then it would be so much harder for you to even understand the story behind it and such. And the same with consciousness. If you look at yourself just from that character, you miss out on so much. You miss out on so much, of what you are. It's like watching The Matrix and just being focused on the character in the movie. And when there's scenes where there is no character, or when there is scenes where there is fighting, you just focus on the character. You don't see anything else. Like, you're missing out the entire movie. Same with life. If you're focusing on this warped idea of identity that you are not, and I keep repeating that, then you're missing out on a big part of who you are. And that's why you experience all this duality and this frustration, because we grew up with these flawed beliefs, these dysfunctional beliefs. The Power of Now helps people to overcome that a little bit. But if you're fully aware of that, and you fully absorb that, you become selfless. And what I mean with become selfless is the selfish become selfless, because the true essence of the selfish is selfless. We are all selfless. Don't know if this helped you guys. I'm going to talk a little bit more about my experience, because it might help you guys a bit more, because I think I went through that maybe a little bit too fast. And that is that you have to try to truly listen. Try to really put everything away and really try to just focus on my world. When I talk to Tanya, for example, or when I talk to Katarina, like what you automatically have is like, when I talk to a person, my intentions are to help the person grow for that person. My intention is not to get something out of it. So my agenda is not to make people work here for me. I'm basically just giving all the time. That's all I'm doing. Like, I'm paying basically for the entire place here. And my agenda is not to get something out of it for myself. My agenda is to grow as a collective group to make a difference in the world. When I talk to Tanya and I talk about growth, then the reason why I talk about growth is not because it would be better for me in the relationship. The reason why I talk about growth is because it would also be better, but at the same time, it really helps her to grow as a person, which on itself already contributes to me. Just knowing that. Same with like raising money for Save the Children. Just knowing that it helps children that need it more than we do already allows me to just experience and elevate in, like, I just experience a growth. Because I feel connected to the rest of the world, even though I might not see it. Like, just the knowledge does it. And it doesn't come from a point of view where I go like, yeah, I like the validation, I do it for myself. No, it's just an awareness. It's an awareness that we are all part of the same organism. We're all part of the same entity. And that's the problem. When people look then at me, they think like, yeah, you are taking money. You must be taking money because I always want to take. I want to take and I want to take. So obviously you also have to take, because they project themselves in me. But the thing is, the way I go through life is, if there is no me that exists, because the way I define me is literally with everything that brings me about, my story, the language, my ancestors, reality, then the concept of me, the concept of being selfish becomes very selfless automatically. And a lot of people don't see how much they are the product of their environment. Everything is interconnected. Like, let's say you would see things instead of visually, you would see things pure information-wise or energy. Like, let's say you just start looking at the world from an energy point of view or an information point of view. Maybe information is better. Then everything suddenly becomes interconnected. You almost don't see the difference between, like if you would experience yourself more as information, just information, right? Then it's all out there. It's all over there. It's all around you. Then suddenly this body that you identify with is not that anymore. It becomes much more wide. And I keep giving a lot of examples and I keep talking about it because I do know that this is a very hard concept to wrap your head around. And it's very hard for me to, to find a way to explain. That's why I keep repeating it. But if you truly understand this, you can detach yourself, and just as much as you want all the time stuff, that wanting and needing mindset creates all these selfish issues that you feel like you have to work on. But when you become selfless, they just evaporate, they vanish. And that's why I've never really been a big fan of self-development, because I always felt like, in a sense, it's also when I talked to Reese back in the days, 10 years ago, I said like, man, can't you just, overcome all this bullshit immediately by just realizing it's just, not relevant? But the problem is that as long as you're stuck in this selfish idea of who you are and you're emotionally attached to identity and you keep wanting these things, you will just be stuck with all these limited issues that you have that are not even there. And that's why being aware of what you are can really allow you to grow beyond it and really experience very strong selflessness. I would go as far as saying that the key to self-enlightenment or pure selfless awareness or making sense or whatever you want to call it, because to me it's all just terms, it's all just linguistics, is already in the door. And the door is already there as well, and it's in front of you. The only thing you need is like, I can tell you, I can say like, there is a door. That's what you gotta do. I can say it over and over again, but the most important thing is you need to want it. But knowing that it's there can help you. Nolan, for example, has been listening a lot to the same podcasts to try and understand and figure it out, because it is already there. You need to want to understand it and listen to it. You need to want to absorb it. So that's why I do these real talks. I have podcasts. A lot of people sometimes watch the podcast multiple times and start realizing like, that's what he means. And that's the thing, like, it is there. That's the beauty. That's the beauty of all this, is knowing that it is there. It's not you that don't click with it. It's you that didn't find it yet. I think that's a very important insight. I should have repeated it more, but I'm repeating it now. It is there. All the answers to all your questions and all your problems is there. You just gotta find it. You gotta find it. And when I say find it, is resonate with it and make the connections in your brain. But it's there already. And you gotta really have the will to figure it out. And the more you do so, the more you try, the better. Like Nolan has been, and that's also what I see. People that are very, very inspired and passionate, like Katarina or Tanya or Nolan or whatever, and are really, really like passionate about growing, are the ones that grow the most. It's not my words that do it. It's not my insights that do it. It's your will to grow that does it. It's in your hands. The information is there. People have made all the connections and gotten to a very close point where I am just by their will to try and understand. I can only do so much from my side. But the beauty is, if you have the will, you can find it. It's there. You just gotta connect it. I don't know how many people that helps, but it's there. It's right in front of you. How do you get anybody who feels special and unique just by their body to get into your logic? Well, people that really find they look really good and really cute and such, they're taking validation from a not optimal source. It's much better to get validation in a sense of being alive from what you are, from your essence, rather than just your looks. Because if you build your world around the looks, it's more shallow. What happens if you get older? Like, what is the real you? It's much better to feel connected to the real essence of what you are. And that's what brings about true confidence. A lot of people can very easily get dragged away from what they are by being focused on certain things, like certain things they really need a lot of validation from that are not really true to what they are.
Subscribe to youtube.com/AtheneWins. Watch the live stream at twitch.tv/AtheneLive and follow The Real Athene on Snapchat.